Okay, welcome everyone to my channel. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. My name's Elizabeth, aka the Speaking Yogi. I'm a yoga teacher, blogger, and now also a YouTube interview host, if that's what you call it.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we're here today to kick off my series of courageous conversations with people who inspire me about about topics that aren't talked about enough in our society, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And the first topic that we are here to talk about today is depression. And before we get into it, I just want to remind you that we are not experts. We're just here to really share our experience, raise awareness, and hopefully also challenge the stigma a bit that exists about this condition. And my guest for this interview is none other than my amazing mum.
Amazing. Oh,
yeah.
you're too kind.
Oh, I know. So Dr. Ulrike Scholz,
right.
PhD, linguist, etymologist. Do you maybe want to explain what an etymologist actually does? Because I don't think I can do it justice.
I look for the history of words, where they come from, whom they met on the way, what they do on their day off. Let me tell you, they make new words.
Oh my goodness. That's a bit improper. Okay. So have you, in your etymological research, have you ever encountered depression? So the word origin, have you found anything about the origin of the word depression? Or something related to it?
What's come up lately reading is the word angst, actually, in English literature, which is some sort of German stereotype. And apparently it's a typical condition for Germans to be anxious,
right,
anguished, to live with anxieties, to let themselves be governed by anxieties.
Right. And that is related to depression?
Very much so.
So in your own experience, what role has anxiety played?
A pretty dominant role, because what brought me into therapy first was this problem of anxiety, of fear for the loss of life, for being afraid of committing a really grievous sin.
Nice.
Really nice. Fear of losing any kind of support, material, personal.
So that is sort of the core for depression for you in your experience?
No, it's not the core. It was the beginning.
Okay.
It sent me into therapy, and that went wrong from day one.
Right. How long have you had depression now? How long has it been?
30 years.
30 years? That is a long time.
Yes.
My goodness. Right. And because you have depression, I have a genetic predisposition to it as well, right?
So I'm told.
Yeah.
But I think there is a genetic dimension to the whole problem.
Yeah.
And it's not, this genetic dimension isn't totally bad, because related to a depressive personality are very good traits, like being very empathetic,
yeah,
for example.
Sensitive.
But you can have too much of a good thing. Actually did.
Apparently. So when did you know that you had depression rather than, just a couple of rough days? Because we all know that, right? We've all had a bad day, we've all had a bad week. What separates that from an actual depression that you would go see someone about? Because I think that is a misconception that a lot of people have. Depression is just being sad, horribly sad. And I see these recommendations of just be happy, and it doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't work that way at all.
So where would you draw the line between being sad and being depressive?
Being depressive is so many other things than just being sad. It means you have no energy at all. You can't concentrate any longer. You can't relate to people or even to animals. In my case, that sent me off because we both have a horse. We love it very dearly.
Yeah.
He's a gorgeous gentleman. And in this acute moment of depression, I was not able to touch my horse.
Yeah.
I simply couldn't. And I noticed that he was looking for me, and
he couldn't find you.
And I still couldn't touch him. I saw he was suffering and I couldn't relate. I just couldn't make contact, and that sent me off, because in the night, that night I didn't sleep, and in the night I thought, if this goes on, I won't survive this winter. And the next day I phoned my GP, told him about therapy and what was going on there.
We'll talk about that later on.
And he said, oh no.
Oh no. So it was not just sadness, it was this distance, this not being able to relate to things, not being able to motivate yourself, having no energy. And I think also people don't know about, I mean, for you, this comes up in episodes, right? In waves. So it's not present all the time.
No.
So how do you
But if it goes on for, let's say, 2 or 3 weeks, after a while you just notice, oh, this is going on for so long, something is definitely wrong. And then happens something like with our horse, and you start thinking in earnest.
Right, so you don't, now that you are kind of more on a stable path, can you tell when a wave is coming up, when an episode is coming up?
I'm aware that there are certain risks. For example, any kind of trauma, physical, mental, any kind of trauma can trigger such an episode. So, and this is very important, there's nobody to blame for depression.
Yes.
Not long ago, my mom died, your grandmother. And I grieved. I still grieve. But it was a very stressful situation. The funeral, all that, winding up
during
the property,
during
COVID. And nobody being able to hug one another because of COVID, and no opportunity to talk with friends over a cup of coffee about our mother, their friend, your grandmother. So after a while, I noticed that I was getting angry. I thought I was being stupid. I couldn't concentrate. I was losing cognitive abilities.
Yes, that's huge for me as well.
And the ability to move on the horse, to direct thought.
So physical precision in movement was not happening. Right, so all these are symptoms as well. So you mentioned this anger, especially also to yourself. So I notice that a lot. When I'm on my depressive episodes, I get that a lot. Also the decline of cognitive ability, and that is so scary. Because for me, it always feels like I feel the thought in my mind, I can feel it coming. I'm like, keep coming, and I can't grasp it. And I stand in my room literally, and I just go like, I was thinking something. I swear I was thinking something, and everything takes ages. And then at the end of the day, you haven't gotten anything done, and you again beat yourself up, and it continues. And I think what you have to develop, or what you naturally maybe develop over time, is this awareness of, oh wait, this is not me, this is an episode and it will pass.
Yes.
So I think there's a big difference, or what I've noticed with you is there's a big difference of what you feel inside and what others see from the outside. So can you talk about that for a bit? Like, where's the difference between how you feel inside and what others see? How much can others notice?
I think you notice, and your father.
Yes.
Because you know me really very well.
Yeah.
But friends and colleagues, probably not. Perhaps those who see me be with my horses, they notice too.
Yeah, they notice the difference.
They notice the difference because the horse, in this case, really is my mirror.
Yeah. Yeah.
And during a depression, it feels like I'm driving a truck.
Yeah. Yeah.
And really, that shouldn't be so.
No, it's a living being. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I've often been told, but there can't be. You cannot be a depressive person. No, but you're energetic.
You function.
You're doing well. You're working well. You achieve. You strive for.
And it's no measure for how you actually do inside. How you actually feel inside. Yeah. So that's important to note, I think, because a lot of people think when you're depressive, you sit in your room and you cry all the time and you're unable to do anything. And often that's what it feels like. But at the same time, I think people with depression are also prone to having this incredible discipline and willpower, and they will force themselves through. And at the end of the day, they collapse and break down. And that kind of then of course impacts their immediate close environment. So you mentioned your horses, but in what other ways has the depression impacted your, let's say, inner circle?
Well, that was quite obvious because depression really started to be something I needed to monitor after you were born.
Oh, right. So was it like postnatal depression?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think that I became aware of it when you were 18 months.
Okay.
And it was really, really strange that you didn't develop your linguistic abilities according to schedule.
Oh, so I was a late comer with speaking.
Very much so.
Oh, right.
So in your development, there was, I don't know how to say.
Yeah, I was slowed down a bit. I was
very much so
behind the others.
Yeah, you were behind, and that was due to my depression because we didn't interact as we should have.
Oh, right. Okay.
And I went to my GP, and he said, "Oh, but I think you're doing better now."
Right. So how old were you when it all started? So did you figure out that you were, or that you had depressive tendencies before you had me, or was it everything only afterwards?
Only afterwards.
Right. And then what did you do to get help? What was the first thing you did?
I talked to my gynecologist, and she gave me some meds. It's hyspericum.
Right.
So
something natural.
Something more or less natural. Yes, and that helped a bit. But it didn't really pull it off.
So it was not a long-term.
No. And then as you grew up and I grew older, the fears got worse.
Right.
The panic got worse, and another gynecologist suggested I should try therapy.
Well, with a psychologist,
psychologist.
Yeah, psychologist. Right, and that didn't.
Not
a psychiatrist.
No, who's a doctor.
Yes. So there's a difference. And that's important.
Very important difference.
Right. So what happened you don't have to go into detail, but what went wrong with the psychologist? How long did you see her for?
I think a couple of months.
Oh, wow. Right.
Once every week.
Oh, that's intense.
And what went wrong?
I mean, you always told me there were tissues nearby, so that's already a bad sign.
Yes.
You come into a room and there are tissues, you expect, am I going to cry?
Yes, you are. And I did, and it helped. It didn't help one bit. It just didn't.
Okay.
I was told that we had to work together.
Right.
And I, as always, being a good girl, said, well, then I will. I do my very best. But it took me a month to realize that I didn't want a mental six-pack. I didn't want to work.
Okay.
I wanted someone on my side. And this therapist was so aloof.
Mm-hmm.
There was so much room between us, so much space.
Right.
And she was always telling me what I had to do.
Right.
So you have to meditate about a certain saying.
Like what?
Like, you will die.
Oh, jolly.
You will get old.
Should hope so.
But it took me weeks
to realize that.
The saying was, you will get old. And it took me weeks to realize
that that's a good
thing.
thing.
Good.
Yeah.
Why would I die young? I will get old.
Yeah.
Good stuff, that.
But oh my goodness, that's a lot of pressure to put on someone.
Yes.
You will die. I mean, what does that?
She said this will be horrible, but you have to.
Oh, it has to get worse first before it gets better.
And I have to face all of my fears.
All of them?
Yes, please. Yes. And as our horse at that time was really quite funny, and you were still very young.
Yeah, I had to deal with him.
And you had to deal with him. And for me, it was a huge problem, because I was always afraid that you might fall down, get seriously hurt, and it would be all my fault.
Because of your depression, weren't able to.
No, because I wasn't
there.
I wasn't there because I let you ride this horse.
Right.
If I hadn't allowed it, you wouldn't have come to harm. That was the reasoning.
Yeah.
So she made me sit there, watch you gallop on that enormous horse, round after round after round. And I just couldn't. And a friend said, what's wrong?
Yeah.
What is it you can't see? Why can't you stay? And I said, I have to. Or I don't want to.
No.
Yeah. So that was, and that was, no. And I had to contact my father, who was dead by then, psychologically.
Oh.
And I told that to my GP, said that to my GP, and he said, what's wrong with your dad? And with you? I said, nothing. He was great.
Yeah.
I loved him. He's dead. I grieve.
Yeah, that's fine. So she couldn't let it go. She couldn't just, she was looking for stuff to.
Yes. And the GP said, this is no use.
Right.
Would you take medication? I said, I'm that desperate, I'd take anything.
Right.
So he wrote a prescription for amitriptyline and told me to take 4 drops, which is nothing.
Nothing.
That's 8 milligrams.
8 milligrams. Okay.
And he gave me the details of a psychiatrist.
So there's the difference. Psychologist, psychiatrist.
Yeah. Said, I respect that man.
Mm-hmm.
Give him a call.
Right.
I did. And having taken the amitriptyline, I could sleep.
Oh wow, so sleeping is a huge part of your depression, right? So it's not for me, it's not, it doesn't really impact my sleep, but for you it's a huge part of the symptomatic, right?
Yes, it is. Because when the depression really gets going, I won't sleep for 2 or 3 hours in the night.
Oh,
During
God.
2 a.m. and 5 a.m.
You don't sleep. And then what do you do? Is it just worry? Is it fear? Or is it just not being able to sleep?
It's fear. It's not being able to stop thinking or
Right.
worrying.
Yes.
That's it. You don't find the peace of mind you need to drop off.
Yeah.
So you don't drop off.
And
And then you crawl out of bed
in the morning,
feeling the worse for wear.
and you just keep going and going.
And you just keep going.
And so the medication was the first time that when you took that, was the first time you could sleep properly again.
Yes. But it took 2 weeks, I think, 2 or 3 weeks, until I really noted a difference in my mind.
So
that was so cool. It really was, because I was at a conference.
Oh, right.
Scientific conference.
Yes,
Scholars,
PhD, right here. Scholar.
Yes, scholars all over the place, and me in the middle.
Right.
It was a very nice morning.
Very prestigious.
Very prestigious. A sunny room. We were all more or less not dozing, no, but
very relaxed. Yeah.
Yes.
Very calm.
And suddenly, all of a sudden, I thought, blimey, that's good stuff. What is saying there? And that was
you're woke, kind of.
Yes.
Right?
And I felt my cognitive abilities kick in again.
Yes. And that's when you noticed how much you were deprived before. Yes. Probably.
And when I first went to meet my psychiatrist, the first thing I noticed,
no tissues. No tissues, no crying. That's good.
That's good. Yes. And he's been my ally.
So he's not kind of working against you like the psychologist was. He's working with you. And
no, he says, I'd never presume to tell a patient
what to do.
What to do.
Yes.
How could I?
Right.
And she was telling me that this horse is definitely the wrong one for me.
Wow, that's presumptuous.
If I had acted on her advice,
yes, you would not have that horse today.
He'd be dead, and I most certainly too. So,
so it really was that bad.
It was that bad. It really was that bad.
So I think it's important to note there are different there's a scale for depression, right?
Yes, of course.
There are people with seriously suicidal tendencies, I would say, and then there is mild depression, which I would say is my case and yours too by now.
By now, yes.
But you can move up and you can move down a scale, yes, I think.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And with the proper treatment, you can lead a normal life.
Right. So you are now taking medication?
Yes.
But not just one. I'm always amazed because she's always like in the evening, she's in the kitchen and she's chopping her pills, and I'm like, oh wow. And she doesn't even take water to get them down. That amazes me most. It's just like a professional. So what are you taking exactly?
It's still the amitriptyline to help me sleep.
So that's in the evening.
That's in the evening, and I take vaccine, which gives me a certain drive,
certain kick to.
Yeah, but not that strong. I don't notice it anymore.
Right, but you did in the beginning.
Yes, of course. But that was cool. No, because after a while you notice that things are really getting better.
Right, and you feel more like yourself.
It's a relief to know that you're not to blame. And there's no sense in blaming anybody else, like my father, my mother, teachers, whoever.
Yeah, childhood experiences.
Yeah, childhood experience. Exactly.
Right, so you have these two. Anything else? Any other medication?
And if it gets really, really bad, I can take another medication.
Right, and that's your tranquilizer,
It's a
right?
tranquilizer, yes.
I love that word. I just love the sound of it, tranquilizer. And so you take that when you feel what? What is the sign?
Panicky
Mm-hmm.
and unable to reach a decision.
Oh yes, yes, that's one I know very well.
When for example, when I walk my horse around the how do we call that?
I don't know. The roundabout, the horse's roundabout.
I walk about with my horse, and I wonder, will I ride?
Oh yes.
Or will I? Or would it be better not to?
Yes.
Is he
this
going?
Doubt.
Is
this
he
gnawing
going wild?
doubt. Yeah.
Can I manage? Is it better to be on the safe side and not try to? And this goes on for hours.
And it's paralyzing.
It is. That's exactly what it is, paralyzing.
And then you take your tranquilizer, and what does it do?
Makes me sleep.
Is that a relief then?
Yes, because it's like rebooting a computer.
Oh right.
If
so it's a bit like a switch off, and then you can find your feet, and then you can get back on.
You can get your feet back under you and move on from there, and that works quite well, unless of course it is a full-blown episode. In this case, a tranquilizer won't work.
Then what do you do? You call your psychiatrist?
If I can, I ask him for his advice, and if I can't reach him, I adjust the medication.
Oh right, so he's given you liberty to do that, to kind of dial up or down.
He says that's what he aims at, that the patient has the control, gets it back.
Right, yeah, that's important.
And knows that he can handle it, and that's really important.
So you get some independence, sort of, right? And that was very helpful when I first got my depression. So when it first started showing up, I was in London all by myself, and I went to my British GP, and she also prescribed me antidepressants, but she was just a normal GP. I don't think she had a lot of experience with depressive patients, and she told me to take a whole pill of sertraline, and I did, because I trust my doc, and she'll know what she's doing. And I took that pill, and it was the worst day of my life because it completely knocked me out. I don't think I managed to think a proper thought for 24 hours. I remember I was lying on my bed flat like that.
Spread eagle.
Yeah, face off to the side, just staring, probably drooling into my bed sheets. And I was unable to think. I didn't feel anything. I had no appetite. It then kind of spiraled into crying for no reason. I was dizzy. I had blurry vision. The next day it was a roller coaster. One day then you have this kick of energy, and then you feel, oh my God, but this is a bit too much of a kick, and your heart's racing, and then it can just flip into crying and panic again. And it was just only because of the dosage. And then I called her, as I did almost every day in London, and she said, "What are you doing? One whole pill? Are you mad?" And I was like, "But she told me to." And then she told me to take a quarter of a pill. And she's been guiding me through with my own medication. And when we notice that I'm really struggling, she says, "Okay, dial up, take a quarter more, not a whole pill more, but just a quarter." And then it takes about a week to actually work, so that I can feel a difference. But then it does work, and it does kind of make me feel more like myself as well. And
I told my psychiatrist
that you've been advising me.
Yes, and he was so delighted.
He was over the moon. Oh my God, you're such a star pupil. Yeah. So talking about medication, I think there's a lot of stigma around medication? Because I've encountered a lot of stigma around medication. What about you? How are people reacting when they do know about you taking medication?
They just stare at me.
Right, for a while, and then it goes away.
Mm-hmm. And
Well,
I don't give a damn.
Yeah, maybe that's also because you're older. You've got a bit more authority than me, maybe.
Perhaps, but I really
You don't care?
don't care. No, not
Nice.
at all. Medication helps me really being the person I am,
Yeah.
doing my work,
Right.
caring for my animals and for my family, of course.
Yeah. So I really struggled with medication for a long time, and with wrapping my mind around, getting antidepressants that impacted my brain chemistry, because I knew that, and I thought, but that will alter my personality. I'll be a different person. And the first time I was prescribed antidepressants was during my A-levels. So when I was preparing for A-levels, yes, and I had an eating disorder, and I went to see was she a psychiatrist or yeah, and she prescribed me antidepressants, and they didn't do anything. I think they didn't really do anything. They were a different kind.
Yes.
And then in London was the next time when I got a different brand of antidepressants, and they did help, and I take them to this day. And I've had people in my life, friends, they called themselves friends, and they told me, or they kind of manipulated me into thinking that having to take medication was a sign of weakness. So a character flaw, sort of, that if you only had the willpower, you'd be able to manage without medication. You wouldn't need that. It's just being lazy. You're not willing to do the work. And I listened to them, and I heeded their so-called advice, and I stopped taking my medication. So it was really cold. I went cold turkey, and it was horrible. I did that several times because apparently I just didn't learn. And those few days really that I made it without medication, I was so aggressive. I was aggressive. I couldn't make decisions. I hated myself. I hated everyone else. And I really hated the person I was, because on some level you watch yourself and you think, what are you doing? Why are you like this? And then you have to understand, or I had to understand, that the medication doesn't change who you are. It helps you be who you actually are. So that's a huge part, and you have to take responsibility for it. You have to take it every day. You have to stick to your dosage. You can't switch it up and down as you like. You have to think about it, talk it over with someone.
Exactly.
So that's really important. So for depression, we can take medication, but is there a cure? Or, because I've never heard of anything like, is it possible to leave depression behind fully?
I don't know. I'm not a scientist, I'm a scholar. And I hold a PhD, not an MD.
So being kind of fully recovered is not something that you're aiming for, right?
It never occurred to me.
Because that's what you would do with a physical illness. When you break a limb, you expect to be fully recovered at some point. But with a depression, that kind of doesn't really come into the equation. And that was another thing I was scared of with the medication. I thought, oh my goodness, I'm 17 and I have to take these pills. Will I be taking them for the rest of my life? And I think it just feels like a lifelong sentence.
Oh, yes.
You've been thinking a lot.
Oh, no. No, it didn't strike me that way. Not at all. I leave depression behind me when I'm well.
Right.
During the medication, of course, because of taking meds, but that's okay.
Right.
I take another medication against high blood pressure. So what?
Yeah, true. So it's just a condition that kind of accompanies you lives in
Yes.
your shade, sort of,
Yes.
and you don't pay it too much attention.
Well, it forces itself back
Yeah,
from
it does.
time to time.
It does.
Attention seeker.
Yeah, it's got ADHD or something.
Yes, and I attend to it, and that's it.
Right, that's interesting. That's a nice perspective, I think. There's also the idea, right? I read a book recently called Lost Connections by Johan Hari, and he sees depression more as a social problem, so social causes of depression, which undoubtedly exist. Loneliness, I don't know, lack of connection to your work, feeling like you're not doing anything meaningful, purposeful. And he kind of attributes depression to all these lost connections. And he kind of says that is more important than biological causes. And
could be.
But do you think like looking for a cure, I think, or looking for a cause is something that a lot of people do? I mean, they overthink.
Yes, they do.
They overthink and they go
They
like,
do.
why me? Why this? Why now?
As far as I've understood the literature, looking for the cause of depression can be quite fruitless and sterile.
Right.
So why bother? There are certain events that act like triggers. As I said, trauma.
Yeah.
Giving birth for 30 hours.
Yeah, for sure.
Losing
someone dear.
Having fear.
Yes, of
panic,
any capacity. Yeah.
Right. That can trigger a depression. A physical trauma as well. Stress, of course, that can trigger depression. But so what?
So why shouldn't we look for a cause? Maybe if we looked for a cause, we could find that cure and we could be rid of it for good.
Because I think there are as many causes
as there are patients.
Yeah. So what possible answer could you find? Of course, you can avoid certain
triggers. You
know about. You just don't go there, and that's okay.
Right. And I think looking for a cause can also go horribly wrong. If you I don't know, think that you are the cause, or that someone else, like you said, that your parents were the cause, what set you off, and that can then lead to blaming, and it can...
Yes, and it can trigger conflict that can't be resolved.
Yes.
If your parents are dead.
Yes.
So what can they do about it?
Yeah, true.
Can't be solved. So I take my meds and I carry on.
So how is it living with depression now in COVID and in lockdown? Has it been any more difficult than it was before?
No.
No, really? I think that will surprise a lot of people, because I think the perception is that lockdown has made everyone, I don't know, more susceptible perhaps to depression, because we are lonely, we're more isolated.
Yes, but isolation was an important part of my life before.
How so?
Because I isolated myself from others during depression.
Yes.
So nothing new.
Yeah, and I actually, it really resonates with me, because during my eating disorder, I also isolated myself from others for numerous reasons. So actually lockdown, it was good practice for lockdown, weirdly enough. Yes. And I remember for the first term of online university, I was thriving. My friends were all like missing campus life, and I was like, no, thank God. No people. That's great. So that is the weirdest thing. It actually, if you've been dealing with depression for a while, you have these isolating tendencies, and in lockdown it doesn't, you are prepared for it. It just feels more like everyone else is doing the same. So it's not been making it worse for you or harder for you? No. You can still see your horses and everything?
I can still see my horses. I can talk to you. I can talk to my sisters.
You can do your work.
I can do my work.
Right. That's great.
So, as per today, I cope.
You cope. That's great. That's great. So how important are social interactions then for depression and for keeping it at bay, sort of? Maybe that depends on the person.
Yes, obviously. From time to time, I teach. And during depression, this is quite exacting, because you have to focus on other people, you have to go out.
Yeah.
During a full-blown episode, I found this
almost impossible.
Almost impossible.
Yeah.
But now, when I meet pupils or when I do it online, it gives me so much energy.
Yeah, and I feel the same with my yoga teaching, because when I'm on my depression, I was actually just teaching a class yesterday, and I think I was it was not a full-blown episode, but just feeling low and kind of veering into that direction. And I was not as focused, not as in the flow. I remember I was thinking about what I was doing. And everyone knows when you start thinking about what you're doing, you can't keep doing it. And I often kind of feel low before teaching classes, and then I teach those classes, and it gives me energy, and it gives me kind of that zest and that purpose. But you have to get yourself to that point where you can actually face the pupil, face the camera. And I think that's where medication again comes in. Right. So we've been talking a lot. To sum it all up, I've got 5 final questions that you're allowed to answer with one word. Or 1 sentence, max. Try your best. You're a linguist. Choose the words wisely. All right, first question. What does depression mean to you?
3 words, actually?
Yeah, that's fine. It can be a sentence, kind of like, you can make a full stop.
Shrinking, wilting, numbing.
Shrinking, wilting, numbing. Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay. All right. Next one.
That was your idea.
Yes, I know it was mine. Let's hope the other answers are more positive. What helps you the most in dealing with the depression?
Actually, right now.
Yeah. What helps you the most?
Support of family, friends, animals, and psychiatrist.
Right. So your support group, yeah.
My support group, very nicely put.
All right. What has lockdown taught you about your depression, if anything?
That I can manage.
Yeah, that's important to know, I think. Very important. What's the best piece of advice you were given about your depression ever? Here
are the details of a psychiatrist I respect. Call him.
Right. Very good. Last one. What would you wish everyone knew about depression?
Depression is a disease. It's a medical condition. It is not a character flaw.
Yes. Very nicely put. I think we can close on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you
for your time, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you will comment below if you have any questions, if you found it helpful, any other topics that you'd like me to cover, that any people that you'd like me to interview. And I'll see you for the next courageous conversation. You were very courageous. I was very courageous. Right, so thank you for watching.
Perhaps I might need some more water. I have plenty. That's not plenty. It's just a bottle.
Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to my wow. I'm so sorry.
Perfect. Oh.
Du bist voll erschrocken.
Ja.
Das ist mit in dem Film, ich zeig dir das, wenn wir das gestoppt haben.
What are you doing?
Drying my eyes.
No. Okay.
Okay, are you ready? I'm going to talk.
Talk away.